My name is Paul McKay, and I'm a senior research analyst at Forrester Research. I was moderating a panel this afternoon on the topic of future and emerging technology. So one of the things that we did was we had a number of esteemed speakers from the wider UK cybersecurity industry who were talking about things like the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence within security, the applicability of blockchain and some of the use cases that can be driven towards with respect to security, and also some of the commercial use cases, and also quantum computing. We got into quite a lively discussion with members of the audience on some of the applicability and how soon is quantum computing going to come. So lots of questions around how quickly is a commercially available quantum computing going to be used, when is it going to break all of the security that we have currently implemented. And I think the reality is that regardless of the technology that we talked about in place, we had to balance the natural cynicism of the audience around some of the hype and buzzwords that come up often with some of these emerging technologies, and help the audience discern where the real applicable use cases were that could really help them advance the practice of security within their own organizations. So I think the key takeaway for me from this panel was around the need to take these emerging technologies kind of at face value. There's a lot of claims that are made in the industry around their suitability for certain use cases, and I think companies need to focus really on evaluating which use cases make commercial sense for them and can provide security benefit. When you go a level underneath some of the top headlines, we actually were able to find some pretty useful and cool examples where these things came into their own. So for example, we were talking about the use of quantum key distribution to build quantum networks which were distributed over several kilometers as an example. We also talked about real examples of where machine learning actually helped to improve the security of one of the largest technology companies globally. So when you really look very hard for these kind of things, you can really find some useful value from these technologies, but it requires you to take a healthy, cynical approach to what's being said to you and looking underneath the hood to see what's really going on and how that technology can really add value. And I think one of the things that I would say is already here and very present is that a lot of the companies that I work with, both in the end user community but also the vendor community, do actually have a lot of real examples of where they're using machine learning techniques now, and I would describe as low maturity artificial intelligence techniques to drive some level of automation and benefit for their own organizations and their customers. Those are some of the more immediate things that I'm seeing here now. Things like quantum computing still feel quite a long way off before we'll start to see that impact the industry in any real or meaningful way. I don't think it's too far off, maybe 3 to 5 years before we see it starting to come into play, but it feels a little bit longer. Blockchain, I think again there are some examples of commercial use cases that are being worked on, but I think that I would say that that's a little bit further off until it comes into its own, but on a shorter time frame, maybe 12 to 24 months.